Hi, my name is Luke Clancy and I'm Managing Editor of Pensions Insight and Engaged Investor magazines. I'm here with Ian Richards, who is Non-Executive Chairman of Next Pension Trustees and is an independent pension advisor. Ian was of course featured in Pensions Insight's Top 50 Most Influential People in Pensions, and he's kindly agreed to be interviewed today. We're going to be speaking about auto-enrolment and the effects that the new regime will have on pension schemes, and in particular the implications for trustees. Ian, welcome.
Hello.
Ian, most of the discussion around auto-enrolment has been employer, consultant and provider driven. But what implications will specifically for trustees in terms of processes, record keeping and governance?
I think you're absolutely right that trustees at the moment are getting a little bit shut out of this debate because they are tail end Charlie. They cannot really move until the employer has made some significant decisions about what they are going to do with their current scheme. One of the big things is everybody who's going to be auto-enrolled going to be put into the existing scheme, or is a totally new structure going to be put in place? Employers are not likely to show their hand until the last possible moment if they are going to level down, because they won't admit to it. But I can easily see many employers thinking about, should we do a starter scheme, a feeder scheme? Should we even close down what we've already got and start something fresh? Is it better to move to contract, master trust? There's a whole host of issues here, and until the employer has decided what he wants to do, the trustee can only sit back and wait. Of course, there are one or two schemes where they've already got high take-up and most employees are in the scheme, and they can get on with their planning. But they won't have to do much because it will already be fit for purpose. But for the most part, most schemes are not in that luxury position. So we've got to sit back and wait and then react very quickly as to how we modify our scheme to make it suitable for the influx of new members.
Overnight, trustees could find that their existing scheme is no longer fit for purpose, as you say, with an investment choice that has been set up for smaller numbers having to cope with a huge influx of new members with a different demographic to the current membership. In terms of default fund design, what aspects should trustees be focusing on as they prepare for the new pensions landscape brought about by auto-enrolment?
Yeah, I think the priority is to look at the makeup of the new membership post-auto-enrolment. Most DC schemes have been set up alongside a closed DB for new entrant only. And as a result, they tend to be full of a lot more younger employees, and some schemes have had hardly any retirements at all. Auto-enrolment is likely to bring in the full age spread, particularly in a huge number who are in that final rundown into retirement. And lots of schemes have really neglected that end of their default. And I would say that's a priority of getting that sorted out. How do you accommodate people joining in the run-in to retirement? And what changes do you need to make to meet those requirements? The second bit then is looking at the financial demographics of the membership. If you're broadening this out, does it significantly change? Are you bringing in a lot of new lower paid employees who might have a very different risk requirement to those who are already in? And if that's the case, is the default that you've got the right one? It may well be that you need to think in terms of having more than one default, almost having categories of membership in which different groups come in to actually reflect their aspirations and that risk profile. I think these are very, very important, and you can't really, until you start to look at what the membership is, know where that is. There's also a big challenge coming up in that the fiduciary responsibilities of a trustee are for members of the scheme, not those who aren't members. We're moving into very much a new paradigm. At the top end, we've got people who are in the scheme who perhaps shouldn't be in it because of the tax changes, and someone needs to be talking with them Is that a trustee responsibility? Is it an employer responsibility? At the bottom end, you've got people who are being put into the scheme who equally, maybe it's not in their best interests. These people are now members. What does the trustee do now about that? Making sure that they are informed and what the types of investment that they're going to have is going to be most appropriate. Do they move from the classic lifestyle to target date funds, where you've got all the issues now of no retirement date coming? So a whole host of big issues there that trustees are going to have to face and work through as to how they actually do it.
Of course, the government has confirmed that it will be scrapping the default retirement age from April. How will this impact on fund design within the auto-enrolment arena?
I think it's going to have a major impact, and not everybody's worked this through how it's going to do and what we're going to be allowed to do. My guess is that schemes are going to have to almost put in a default pension age, not a retirement age, from which date the pension will become payable unless people change. And you, for administrative reasons, you write everything to that age at outset, but you have to build in a lot of flexibility then as they approach and their plans become more certain, to give them that flexibility to be able to do something. I mean, there is no reason under legislation now why you can't take your pension at 65 but continue to work to 70. So I can see that flexibility of the whole arrangement is going to be absolutely key, which may start to impact on some of the designs that people have been pushing, like target date, where you select a date. All of a sudden you don't want 2040, but you now want 2042. How costly is it going to be to change from one to the other? Is it better to be in lifestyle? Does that give you more flexibility? A lot of big questions from the product providers of how they're going to adapt to provide what's necessary for the members in that new regime.
Ian, do you think there's a danger that auto-enrolment will lead to a proliferation of DC schemes which lack investment choice and do not offer optimum levels of governance? Do you think a system based on really large sector-wide DC schemes could, for example, be preferable?
I think that the likelihood is that's the way that we will go. We'll get a lot of big schemes industry-wide for the simple reason that the question of early leavers has not really been addressed. The real challenge for schemes, for employers, even the contract providers, is lots and lots of small pots. People don't work for the same employer. I mean, I heard a report the other day which said over a working lifetime, people could easily have 11 jobs. That's a lot of small pots, and we really should have had auto-enrolment with auto-transfer so that when you leave, it goes. Now, if you've got an industry-wide scheme, you may move within the industry, but you've got a consolidator. And we're going to need some new products, because otherwise employers are going to be saddled with having to manage huge numbers of very small accounts, providing communication, all sorts of issues for people who no longer work for them. Auto-enrolment puts everybody in, and that's going to be a major issue. And I think it's one of the reasons why we'll see the Australian model and the lots of employer schemes will disappear, and they will be very much more the industry-wide or some sort of affinity group where you can drive down cost and make the thing scalable.
Ian, you mentioned the Australian model there, which obviously has a large element of compulsion. How far away in the UK do you think we are from compulsion if the current regime doesn't live up to expectations, for example?
I think it's always going to be very much on the cards, but I think we're quite a way off yet. We've got soft compulsion in a way, and how many people will in fact opt out. A lot will depend on the economic climate when they go in, but then with the re-enrolment every 3 years, inertia is likely to pick them up and give them, so I think we're quite a way off the compulsion.
It's been a very interesting interview today, Ian, and I'd like to thank you for coming in.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, there you have it, Ian Richards. This will be the first in a series of interviews with the top 50 most influential people in pensions. Stay tuned and look out for more.